Hello and welcome to one of the hardest things I'm ever going to do. Many people have had extreme views, I believe anyway, at some point in their lifetime. I used to be a white supremacist. Welcome to the second episode of Memoirs of a Closet White Supremacist. This is not an easy thing to do, but I'm trying to essentially give hope to those who feel like white supremacists cannot reform themselves. Episode 2. Being a Closet Nazi. Having these views of white supremacism in the 1990s was not unique, but it was very rare, especially in the Northeast. In 7th grade, I was introduced in history class to social Darwinism. A basic version of evolution had been covered in elementary school. Before I knew about the concept of social Darwinism, I thought the concept of Darwinism could apply to race, but learning about social Darwinism confirmed that idea in my mind. Social Darwinism is the belief that essentially the rules of Darwinism apply to races. The eternal example is blacks are athletic and whites are intellectual. But there is, of course, no support for these claims by modern science. At the time, it made perfect sense to me that race played into evolution, that each race had different traits, but of course my own race had the most desirable ones. Since I was pushed around by my fellow classmates on occasion, I could now point to what I believed was the problem. The problem was the way society was run. That's what caused these people to be mean to me. And who ran it? Well, basically any minority you could think of. The idea of white supremacy also allowed me to think of myself as superior in any case, even against a fellow white student, especially if they hung out with a minority. My largest beef, though, was with the Jews. I believed essentially everything Hitler said about them, from the secret running of the world to the racial inferiority. Little did I know I was in for a surprise. I was interested in music, and by middle school, I had been playing the saxophone in band class. There was one kid who really looked up to my ability to play well. Since religion is rarely discussed in the US, especially among children, I went almost a year and a half without knowing he was Jewish. Being it is in my nature to be kind, despite having issues with Jews, I did my best to make excuses for him, and it worked. My middle school had 2 black kids in the band, and one happened to play saxophone. He too was impressed with me, and he would always encourage me. He even sought help from me from time to time. He too, I wrote off, a la the film Glory, as what we then termed a snowflake. The term didn't mean what it does now. Then it referred to a black person who lived the stereotypical life of a white person. This particular schoolmate dressed very well and was well-to-do, as his parents were lawyers. He didn't use black slang or ebonics, and he blended in with the rest of us. In fact, even at the time, I recognized him as more intelligent than I was, but again, this was an exception, not the rule. So, since he was really not black by my own standards, i.e. did not display the stereotypical behavior of blacks I expected to see, we remained friends. Interestingly, I was introduced to the opposite term, Wigger, the more derogatory, or Wigga, around the same time, which was slang for a white person who thought they were black, or more properly, embraced then hip-hop culture and or African American culture. There was one very attractive girl in middle school who was a Wigga, whom I despised. I worked with her on a project my black friend helped me get into, a play version of Schoolhouse Rock. It's funny, looking back on it, that I had such a double standard. For my black friend to embrace what I considered a white lifestyle, for lack of a better term, I applauded. But for this Wigga girl doing the opposite, I saw it as a disgrace. All this meditation on who people were, though, was all internal. Since my ideas were not socially acceptable, there was no way I could speak about them overtly in school, especially in middle school. Instead, I would simply take conservative stances on ideas involving race. For example, affirmative action, to at least be able to express myself to a certain degree. I don't mean to suggest that being against affirmative action automatically makes you a racist, but it is sometimes a position they will take. Meanwhile, my online life turned into reading and listening. Web pages could now hold more than just text and graphics, so Stormfront.org began hosting short video files as well as long audio files, including speeches from George Lincoln Rockwell.
Commander George Lincoln Rockwell, you are head of the American Nazi Party?
Yes, sir.
How can you possibly justify leading an organization whose objectives are the liquidation of the Jews, the removal of the Negroes to Africa, and the turning of the United States into a fascist state?
Well, I don't know where you got those supposed objectives, but they're ridiculous. We have no such objectives, as you have said. We are not out to liquidate the Jews. We are out to liquidate communist traitors. Unfortunately, too many Jewish atheists, not religious Jews, but too many religious atheist Jews are mixed up in communism. That's our only concern with the Jews. And as for turning us into a fascist nation, that's untrue too. Fascism is essentially an economic doctrine that has to do with a corporate state. We don't believe in a corporate state. We believe in free enterprise. What we are is Nazis, which means basically that we are racists. We believe in preserving a white nation, a white Christian nation, for the white Christian people who built it.
George Lincoln Rockwell, before becoming a Nazi himself, actually fought them in the Second World War. He graduated from Brown University, and during both World War II and Korea, he considered himself to be a liberal. Then his stance changed, and he founded the first post-war National Socialist Party of the United States, the American Nazi Party. Needless to say, in all white power circles, even the Klan, Rockwell is hailed as a visionary and a leader. He's sometimes referred to as Commander Rockwell. Rockwell worked in sales after returning home, so he knew how to sell the party. He also knew how to use public opinion to his advantage. By the time I joined the movement, almost 40 years later, there had been some makeovers and rebranding. People like David Duke said we weren't really racist, and we don't hate anybody, but we were really about the rights and history of white people.
And his message appeals to many frustrated white voters who believe the civil rights movement has gone too far. He repeatedly tells them they are victims of reverse discrimination and that their taxes are being squandered on welfare mothers.
One reason why the welfare system is out of control is because we have a massive illegitimate welfare birth rate in this country. I mean, they're literally breeding faster than they can raise your taxes to pay for them all. He still seems to be for racial discrimination. Only now it's against whites instead of blacks.
This became a type of doublethink for me. I didn't like Jews or blacks, but if I ever had to make an argument about it, I would say the same thing, that I didn't hate anybody. But in actual fact, none of that was true. What allowed me to hold on to my unspoken beliefs was the fact that I could talk to people about it on the internet. I could also access mounds of propaganda on different websites. By that time, another American Nazi Party led by Rocky Sahuda existed, and I actually secretly donated to them until my sophomore year of high school.